Hey, this is Chris Jenkins with www.readanddontweep.com. I'm a homeschool father of five. Our children are currently aged 3 to 11. I'm filming this in July of 2019. And this month, we actually just registered the new domain name for the website, and I'm in the process of building it out. So, depending on how soon you find this video, it may or may not be ready yet. I've recently been placing videos up on the Read and Don't Weep YouTube channel, just kind of showing our children and where they're at in their different reading ability, different reading levels. My 11-year-old, I feel like is way ahead. I think we've done pretty well with him. And then my 9-year-old and 8-year-old are reading also. Cadence, the 9-year-old, has gotten past kind of the foundational stage, and now we're actively working with her on a little bit higher reading level books. We're going to be transitioning from homeschooling to private schooling on August 1st. So we're going to find out real quick how we have done. Liberty is still in the process. So we're working with her through a book. And although I've had other children start earlier, some started later, we've been pretty relaxed with this, and not relaxed in terms of not understanding how important it is, but just relaxed in terms of timetables. I have found that it's not worth the frustration and the effort to try to start a project with a child before they're ready in terms of their aptitude. And so we've had children that were ready to go, raring at the bit, and we've had children that have required a little bit more nudging, a little bit more motivation and encouragement. And so there's been times when we've started a project like this reading book I'm about to share with you, and we decided, hey, we're not ready yet. They're not ready. This is going to be frustrating for us. It's going to be frustrating for them. So let's put it on hold. So we'd go through a few lessons, figure it'd be better to wait. So we give it 6 weeks or maybe a few months, and then we'd start over again. But now that I'm on my third child that's really excited and really moving forward and advancing and reading, we've picked up on some similarities despite different personality types. And I'll share a little bit about my background and why I think our children might be doing well in this area, and why I feel like that has worked out that way. And we thought that, this would be something that we could just put up on the internet, put some videos out, put a website out, and it might serve as a source of inspiration or encouragement to other parents who are working through this. So a little bit of background on me. Back in the late 90s, my mom went through a program called Coach University, and she became a life coach. So during those like critical years of the end of my high school education, she was super focused, super pumped up about like self-improvement, um, reading books like Good to Great, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a lot of really inspirational material like that. And those aren't specifics. Those are books that I've read. They may have been on her reading list back then. But she was definitely digging into a lot of the self-help and the self-improvement type literature. And she was working with clients one-on-one to help them kind of optimize different areas of their life. And that all took place when I was kind of at, a critical time in my educational process. And I went from being like kind of a decent student in middle school to being a better student in high school. And then I went on to college and became an honor graduate. I actually went through a flight training program, and before I was 20 years old, I was certified as a certified flight instructor. So I was taught how to train people to fly airplanes. That was late 90s when she was doing the life coaching. And then flash forward to early 2000s, she got involved with a company, and I'll show you the website here. It's the PACE program, which is PACE, Processing and Cognitive Enhancement, which PACE is a 16-week program that my mom is certified as a local PACE provider in Waynesboro, Georgia. She's been doing this for a long time, I'd say several, maybe 15 years now, something like that. But she's got students that come to her, and we were having students in her office when I was, probably first few years of college. And they would go through this 16-week program, and it's amazing the results that they get, because they would go from They do an initial assessment of their skills, and then by the end of this 16-week intensive training program, which is kind of like boot camp or calisthenics for your mind, these students would come out the other end and they would have advanced 2, 3, 4 years in reading comprehension, learning ability, communication skills. And I can actually show you that here. I was just looking around on their website, and I think if I go here, results, some of this is maybe not super current, but these are studies from 2001. Let's say change in years when pretest was 2 or more years below age. So in other words, a 7-year-old comes in, they're reading at a 5-year-old level, and the average is that these students would advance three years or better after going through this 16-week study. So, and that's just one metric. I mean, there's pages here. You can go check out the website for yourself if this is something that you're interested in. But my mom has a long history of taking these students, running them through the 16-week program that's really intense, but it's also, systematic, methodical, logical. And that was kind of what I had been exposed to going into flight training. And I went from being like a 3.0 student, I think I was better than a 3.0. I think my overall average for high school was like an 88 point something. So I was in our very small class of 23 graduates. I was like the highest GPA that did not graduate with honors. So I went into college though and stepped that up, graduated with honors. And as I said, I became a certified flight instructor before I was 20 years old. And when you get into training people how to fly airplanes, we classify learning in like 4 different ways. You've got your basic memorization, or what we call rote. Beyond that is the understanding level. Beyond that is the application level. Beyond that is the correlation level. And so from pretty early on in my career, I had experience of taking like these complex topics like flying an airplane and just breaking them down into bite-sized pieces. Flash forward to 2008, and I became a dad. And then I would say that Josiah really started his marching forward in a way that led to him becoming a strong learner. I would say in 2014 is when we kind of got into the thick of it, of all that. So that would be, I think he was maybe 6. I think he was 6 years old. And as I've said before in this video, we weren't trying to push the early stuff. We were trying to kind of wait until the flow from being not a reader to being a reader was more natural. And so one of the principles I want to talk about is the appropriate level of stimulation for a child. And this is really for anyone learning anything. It's the same thing in an airplane. So if you're understimulated during the learning process, it's boring, and that's not where learning takes place. But depending on the aptitude of the individual, their interest level, their capability, the instructor, the material, depending on those things, you can very quickly have someone who's understimulated and bored and overwhelm them, and it becomes frustrating. And I'll show you in a minute on some user reviews. I have found this to be the case with other people that I've interacted with when it comes to teaching a child to learn. Getting frustrated, the child's frustrated, the parent's frustrated, or the teacher's frustrated. It's not a place where learning happens. I would call that overstimulated. And the reality is that sweet spot where you're appropriately stimulated and learning takes place it's a sweet spot. And, it's really easy to try to do too much too quick. And it's, sometimes it's difficult to hit that sweet spot. And so, number one, I would say that we waited. If we felt like our children weren't ready, we didn't force the issue. Once we felt like they were ready, like from an aptitude perspective, we went ahead and started getting into it, but we didn't rush. We didn't try to grind or slog through the material. We just, tried to have a quick session with them that was meaningful. If they got frustrated, if it turned into crying, we would put the book away. And then we also learned that during the early stages of education, a lot of times it's an attitude issue more than it is an aptitude issue. And so if we had a bad attitude, we would try to address that and deal with it before we moved on with the learning exercise. And I'll say that for a while, my son wasn't not enthusiastic about going through this reading. So we would have to try to find ways to motivate him. And I'll say that motivation and inspiration are not the same thing. Eventually, we got him to the point where he was inspired and he wanted to learn to read because he understood how valuable it was. And he understood that if he gained this skill, then he would be rewarded and that he would have the ability to then, pick subjects that he was interested in and read books. We kind of worked with him and just talked with him in a way to try to inspire him. Sometimes they're not ready to be inspired, though. Sometimes it's honest, like motivation, and it seems kind of petty, but it would be like, hey, buddy, if you've got a good attitude and you work really hard with me, we'll give you some marshmallows when you're done with the lesson. And with a 6-year-old, sometimes that's all it takes. So I know we're kind of hitting on a lot of different subjects here, the different levels of learning, the different levels of stimulation, and the difference between inspiration and motivation. And I probably will go back and try to do like more detailed videos on each of these. But at this point, like I'm really early in the channel and I just kind of want to get the information out there so people that are interested in this know who I am, and and kind of what our experience has been. And our hope is that people will find this information and that they will find encouragement, inspiration, and useful tools to help their children. The next thing I want to show you on this kind of introductory video is this book. This is the tool that we have used, and I'll show you a copy of ours right now. You can see it's in really bad shape. Liberty's working through this, and it's actually the second copy that we've had in our home. The first one just got completely destroyed. Number one, it's cheap. We have been homeschooling our family up to this point, and I think this is a really common book in the homeschool community. We had another family that recommended it to us probably when he was 4, and we went ahead and picked up a copy. And like I said, we'd sit down and go through a little bit, and we'd say, you know what, he's not ready. Let's wait. You know what, he's not ready. Let's wait. But we had the attitude that, even at a point, let's say my 7-year-old, she might be a little bit behind, but I know that we've gotten her to where she is with very little frustration. And at this point, she is making steady progress. And I'll go back to the experience that I had with my mom working with the children in PACE. And our goal has never been to have like the brightest 3-year-old or, this child that's way ahead of the curve, because I know from my own experience, from middle school, advancing into high school, and then being a pretty high performer with my college experience, like what really is important is that you get to a point where you can march forward. And I have seen specifically like with students who struggle in math and they are frustrated and they can't get it. And all of a sudden you get a really good tutor who can guide you, and boom, the light comes on and the test scores go from 60s to 90, 95. So I've always had the mindset that it's not worth fighting over. It's not anything to force or to push. But if we can have our children, if we can kind of nurture a positive attitude, and that attitude that is curious and adventurous and excited about doing the training, then, I know I can get them to a point and we can boom, 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 march forward and make steady gains. And in the end, it won't matter, where they were at 5 years old. It will matter that they get to a point where they can continue to march forward and excel and perform. And that's where we're at currently with Josiah and his math. So I wanted to share this book. And then if we flip over here to Amazon, where you can purchase this book, I just wanted to show you, I'm looking at the top positive reviews, 2,277, and then 327 critical reviews. So these are people that like, they bought the book, they put time into it. These are people that really have a stake and, a seat at the table to speak up. And you'll see it's about 14% critical reviews. And then you look at the breakdown, overwhelmingly 4.5 stars. But you can see down here with the 3, 2, and 1 stars, that's 13% of the total reviews are 1 stars. And then if we just look down at some of these lower rating stars, we can see that And you can go back and look at these. I don't have to read through this, but it seems to be that one of the most common struggles people have is just having frustration. I think some of this might be that, you know, maybe we're trying to do this too early with our children and, instead of waiting until the child's ready. Um, and then another factor that can lead to frustration is trying to do too much, you know, too long of a session at one time, or just trying to force it. I mean, honestly, this book, if you read in the first few pages to the parent section, the way it's put together, they're like, hey, you can read this book word for word. And the book is set up that way where the parent kind of has their red letter, you know, section that they read, and then the child responds and the parent can follow up on that. And I'll say from our experience, we started that way. And once we got a feel for how it works, I don't even read the red letter stuff anymore. We go into a lesson and it's more like I'm coaching the child. And if something's great, hey, that's awesome. I really praise them. If something's a little bit rough, you know, we'll do a lot of drilling, like, hey, let me read this to you, and then you can read this back to me. There's lessons that we get through in 5 minutes, and there's been times when, you know, we said, you know what, this is kind of getting tough, so we're going to close the book. We're not going to look at it for the next 2 days, and when we start back, we're going back 10 lessons. We actually did that a few months ago. And so I never looked at it as a grueling process to slog through. We looked at it more as, hey, you know, let's get every concept mastered before we move on to the next one. Now, granted, we had the flexibility of being a homeschool family, so there's no timetable. But like I said, we're putting them into the private school. So we're going to be finding out real quick kind of how we've done. But I know that at this point with my oldest three, we're able to just have them like steady moving forward. And I feel like if there is ground that we've lost, we're making it up pretty quickly. So this is the resource that we've used. The website again, readanddon'tweep.com. My vision for this is taking the material, the information that I've learned. I've kind of done some mind mapping, some brainstorming, and I've got some ideas for the things that I think would be powerful to help families that are working through this as well. But I'm hoping that people will find this video, this website, and this YouTube channel, and, you know, reach out to me. Please leave comments and anything, you know, you'd like to discuss. This can be kind of an open discussion, and I'm sure that we have a lot to learn. But I know that at this point, I feel like we have some things that we have learned and that we've kind of got a handle on, and I hope that we'll be able to share that and be a blessing. And be an encouragement to other families. Thank you so much for checking out my video. There will be more coming soon. And yeah, just comment, shoot me an email, or drop by the website where you can tune in and let me know any other questions we could answer or how we could kind of build this project up in a way that will be the most beneficial to you and your family. We've always placed incredibly high value on this aspect of a child's early education, learning how to read. So again, I just can't say thanks enough, and I hope you have a great day.